Alright, what's going on, guys? Got another breakdown for UFC 270. This one's at middleweight. We got Rodolfo Vieira, the black belt hunter, taking on Wellington Turman. Vieira's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage. They're the same height, but Vieira cuts a ton of weight. He competed in jiu jitsu at light heavyweight and heavyweight, so it should be kept in mind. But I will start with Turman real quick. So, coming off of a very weird fight with Sam Alvey, in which he won by split decision, but he had 2 points deducted for eye pokes, and he still won that fight. Just goes to show Sam Alvey. But I'm not a fan of Wellington Turman's game a whole lot. I usually look to fade him. I'll just start that off by, right away I'll say that. But stylistically, Turman, he's pretty big. He's got a decent diet of kicks. He's got a good front kick. Sometimes he goes to spinning shit way too much. In the Alvey fight, he landed a spinning elbow or a spinning back fist that really cut him open, and then he tried like 10 more of them. So that's stupid. That's not good to see. He shouldn't be doing that against Vieira because he'll get taken down. But yeah, he's got good front kick. He's got good spinning kicks. He's got good switch kicks. He's got a healthy diet of kicks. He's never been able to land one super heavy. In terms of striking, a lot of 1-2s, a lot of heavy 1-2s, a lot of punching his way into the clinch. But what I don't like about him is he is just kind of a guy who is good at like a lot of things, but he's like a master of none, kind of. He spends a lot of fight time, or at least a lot of UFC fight time he has spent in the clinch, just kind of like trying to transition to the back, trying to get trip takedowns, not getting him. It's like his signature position. He'll just be kind of hanging on in the clinch. But yeah, he's gotten some wins, beat up Marcus Perez, or didn't beat him up. It was another boring fight, kind of, where Turman, a lot of clinch work, some 1-2s, wins the exchanges. Perez is kind of washed up. But other than that, he lost to Carl Roberson in his UFC debut. Andrew Sanchez, Sanchez just destroyed him on the feet. He was able to stuff the takedown, but Sanchez, probably the best he's ever looked in the UFC, which he is no longer with the UFC. But, Sanchez was a game fighter. It's going to happen. Against Bruno Silva, brutal knockout. He was actually having a lot of success with the BJJ. A crucial fence grab might have saved Silva's ass when Turman was in the backpack position. But he ends up shaking him off, and then just relentless ground and pound. Bruno Silva has freak power in his hands, and he put him out cold. And so, yeah, that's the thing. Turman does have a black belt in BJJ, and he's pretty big, so it's going to matter for this fight because he's going to have to utilize that. But striking-wise, I think he's kind of sloppy on the feet. He leaves a lot of room to get countered, a lot of room, and he's quite hittable. He does have decent power of his own sometimes, but it's pretty just, 1-2s, and then he goes for these kicks that he doesn't set up super well. And it's mostly just to set up, getting into the clinch, look for the takedown. But again, he's just kind of a master of none, and it's a little concerning. But he's a decent-sized underdog in this one. And then so for Rodolfo Vieira, this is a guy who the MMA intellectuals are all about. There are Rodolfo Vieira truthers out there for sure. And I agree with it. This guy's a beast. He's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's about as good as it gets. Multiple world championships for jiu-jitsu, but in terms of MMA, it's still a work in progress. And he gets the win over Oscar Piachota in his UFC debut, arm triangle choke. He's got a very tight squeeze. The arm triangle choke seems to be one of his best weapons in the UFC because he got that over Safarov as well. But of course, the big issue with him and the big fight that looms large is the Anthony Hernandez fight, where he was a huge underdog. He just kind of gassed himself out in the first round, and he ends up getting choked out in the second, and he was just exhausted, man. I mean, there was nothing left. Midway through the first round, he was exhausted, and his striking defense is very basic. He was getting tuned up by Hernandez, and he just looked like he didn't want to be in there, and he was just shooting these desperation takedowns that were, if anything, just making the situation worse. And he ends up getting choked out in that. And then he has a nice bounce back win against Stoltzfus, where he seemed to make some improvements on the jab. The first round was very close. I would give it to Stoltzfus, just a little bit more aggressive towards the end, especially. But he was landing that jab and had his face all red in the first round. And they start to cut his face up in the second round, all with that jab. And he was very measured. He was clearly trying to not gas out like he did in the Hernandez fight. He was really taking his time. And when he does shoot for these double legs, he tends to get them a lot. See, the problem I have with Rodolfo Vieira is like the odds that he always gets and the way people talk about him and shit. You would think this guy is the second it gets to the ground, it's over. There's nothing you can do. He's just an absolute demon on the ground, and he's not that in the UFC. He really isn't. Like, he has a couple great submissions, and they're great. You know, this guy's got a tight squeeze. The submission against Stoltzfus was awesome. Just transitions to the backpack, and he went to tap instantly. He drops him down. It was a great win, right? And it looks like he's more measured. But I just have to say that, like, the respect he gets from the odds makers, and the price you have to pay to bet on this guy, he just never has looked like that to me in the UFC, despite getting a lot of these wins. But they've been feeding him a lot of wins. They've been giving him winnable fights. And as a long-term prospect, I'm not really sold. But on the plus side, again, we did see improvements in the striking against Stoltzfus, and he is credentialed. He does have the submission game. It's just we got to worry about the gas tank, and his striking is very, very one-dimensional. It's pretty much just a jab, sometimes a counter right. It's like, but again, pretty much just a jab. And now for this one, we got Vieira as a big favorite again. I'm going on DraftKings odds here because they got way better prices for this fight all around. But Rodolfo Vieira on DraftKings at minus 225. Wellington Turman coming back plus 185. You can get a better price on Turman on FanDuel. But if you're going to pick Vieira, it's going to be all methods, going to be by submission. And Vieira to get the sub on DraftKings is plus 110. So not great. And it's pretty much the only betting angle that I would support in this one because, there is another one, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, it's I would pick Turman. I gave Turman a long look, man. I really wanted to pick Turman. It's just I cannot back my hard-earned money on Wellington Turman. He has low fight IQ. He's not that great, and I do think that if he goes for his signature clinch positions, he's gonna leave himself in a position where Vieira's gonna trip or go to the backpack. And even if it does have to stay standing, I think we're gonna get the 1-2s from Turman. And Vieira's chin is not great, so it could be an issue. But like at the same time, Turman is very hittable. I could see Vieira having success with that jab and force some desperation offense out of Turman, or not desperation, but just some ill-advised stuff. And the thing is since Vieira is so big and he does cut a lot of weight, he is pretty strong for this weight class. He does tend to get these double legs when he goes for them, and I do think that Turman, with his fight IQ being suspect in my eyes, I could see him just getting too overzealous on the ground, playing into Vieira's game, and getting choked out. But in terms of a betting perspective, I don't really want to back Vieira by sub. It's not a great price. Like I said, this guy isn't the relentless, just absolute demon. Every time he does get the sub, it's a little greasy. It's a little bit concerning. And the other thing is, this guy seems to have some issues with scar tissue or something for whatever reason, because in pretty much all of his fights, his eye has been busted up. He got the win over Stoltzfus, but his eye was busted up again. Got the win over Safarov, but his eye was busted open in that one. I think the fight would have been stopped if he didn't get the first round submission because his eye was really messed up, man. But in terms of a time prop for this, I do like the over 1.5 at minus 150, and if I do bet this fight, it's going to be the over 1.5. Well, we've seen him really try to take his time with the submissions to not gas himself out. I mean, it's only been one fight, but I think we're going to see that again. And we've seen him take his time before, too. So I do think over 1.5 at minus 150 is a good price. If he does get it, it's because Wellington Turman kind of presents himself to the submission. But I'll trust Turman's submission defense enough to get him through the 1 or 2 submission attempts that Vieira will throw at him in the first round if he manages to get it to the ground. But we very well could see Vieira just hide behind that jab for much of the first round again. See if he can't drag this fight into a little bit deeper waters and work in the submission later. So if I'm going to bet it, over 1.5 at minus 150, I do like Rodolfo Vieira, but I'm not crazy about the betting value, and it would have to be by sub. So thanks for watching, guys. Sure, subscribe, and take it easy.